Hey, welcome to Coding with Chris. I've got Amir Rajan with me today. So we are going to get some expert help with Dragon Ruby. So I won't have to spend the entire show just stumbling through, not knowing anything.
Yeah, like let's put expert in with a big asterisk next to it. Just setting expectations here.
Yeah. So glad you're here. Thanks for coming and joining us today. I'm looking forward to this and having some fun. We got two main topics that I want to try to cover today. One is going over some basic GUI elements. I want to add some GUI things in here.
Okay.
And the other one is talking about sprite sheets and how we're going to use those.
Sounds good.
So before we get started, I'm just going to do a bird's eye view of the code so you kind of know where we are and what we're trying to get after. So obviously the main is very simple. We're just doing a tick count 0 setup, and all it does is load the world. We'll come back to these things in a moment. But basically it calls up our world, which is a singleton class that's holding all the stuff. The viz things are kind of temporary just for our initial development of maps. But it calls the generate world map, and then the world map has basically generates 3 different maps. It generates a height map, a temperature map, and a moisture map. The height and moisture maps are Perlin noise, and the temperature map is just a gradient from the middle. And that's what it's doing right now. Now, ultimately, our map is a 2-dimensional array of tiles. So tiles hold those values. They have their X and Y coordinate. They have a size. Will have sprites. Right now, these are just returning solids based on a couple of things, but this will get converted to sprites as we go. And then it's doing these different viz things. So I've got a height viz for the height map, a temperature viz for the temp map, and a moisture viz for the moisture map. Right, it's just different colors of solids coming out.
Makes sense.
And the way I'm showing these things right now is each one of these maps gets sent to a render target of static primitives, and then I'm just changing this for each one I want to see there. So one of the first things I would like to do is to put a little drop-down GUI where I could switch between these 3 while I'm running.
Sounds good.
So where do we go for that?
Okay, so so you're familiar with like the primitives that are in Dragon Ruby, right? You've got lines, borders, solids, sprites, I think, and labels. Yeah. Right. So if you were, the way I try to think about UIs is I try to, or any visual element is to decompose it into those primitives. So a button is a sprite in its simplest form, or a button could be a border with the label in the center.
Okay.
Right. And so let's actually just start with that. Let's create a button which is a border of some size.
All right. So
it's got a label right in the middle of it, and that could be your menu item.
Okay. Do we just do this in the tick, just directly in the tick, or do we want to?
Yeah.
So So this will happen 60 times a second. Right, okay. But it's not like we can create one once and just stick it there and look at it forever. It has to be created every tick.
Right, the rendering mechanism has to be created. Right.
Right.
Now the backing structure can live in state, and we'll eventually expand it to move it over there. But I would even just do args.outputs, and then
primitives.
Yep, you can do primitives if you like primitives, or borders, either one. But I like.
Oh, you got just borders.
Yeah, we have borders also. Yep.
Well, which one is better?
Borders doesn't require you to provide any kind of like type information.
Oh, okay.
Right. So you can just do X, Y, width, and height. So let's give it. Let's put it in the center of the screen for now, or some random location, X:100. Y. Yep, and give it a width and height. And it'll be W and H.
Oh, just W and H. Oh, goody.
Mhm.
That's right up my laziness alley.
Good. And then
No, I got that kind of backwards.
You can give it an RGB also.
Okay. Let's start with gray, and we'll adjust from there.
This is one of my superpowers. If you give me a color, I could potentially give you a pretty close RGB representation of that color.
Really? I want this kind of purple down here in the. Where are we at with
Where's
that?
Purple?
This light purple here in this bottom bar.
Okay, try. That's gonna be pretty close to the try 200 for the R, 200 for the B, and 30 for the G.
Man, if you get this right, I'm sending you a big cape with an S on it.
It's not gonna be perfect, but it'll be pretty damn purple.
Man, that's cool. All right, so if we do that, so now we'll have a border. If I run this now, I'll just have a little border sitting there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you, I know it takes a second for it to start up. Maybe just
yeah.
Yep, and then we can kind of see what it looks like.
I don't need it to gen the maps to look at that. Some bitch, you got it right. You're getting the cape.
So change it to solid so we can actually see the entire background color.
Just
Solids
like that,
nice.
right? Oh, solids.
Solids. Yep.
Love
Pretty damn
it.
close, isn't it?
Oh man, that's just holy hell. That is a superpower, my man. All right, so and then we want.
I can't do arithmetic in my head, but I can do that.
Hey, you know, everybody's got their thing. So now I'm assuming I want something like this.
Yep, there is labels.
And
so give it the same X and Y location for now.
hi.
And we'll worry about like shifting things around once we get
Sure.
the machinery in there. And then there's a text property.
All right, so let's see. So I want a let's call this, we'll just make this one the height map button.
Cool. Like it.
And let's see what we got there.
And it'll probably clash a little bit. All right, so there's a vertical alignment enum, vertical underscore alignment underscore enum. And 0 is top, 1 is center, 2 is bottom. So if you set it to 0, let's set it to 0 and see how it shifts it.
Okay. All right. So is 0 here in this enum? Is it kind of the same as the grid? 0 from the bottom left.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
We
Do I have
it to 2 for backwards compatibility.
Okay.
Yeah, we had this quirk and bug that was in the system for months, and I was like, I don't want to break everyone, so we defaulted to 2.
Oh wait, I forgot to shut it down, but that should live reload, right?
Yeah, it should hot load.
Did I not? I didn't save it. It won't hot load if I don't save it. It's not that damn smart. Can't be that smart. Uh-oh.
we gotta find the temp file. That's the tricky part. That's always the tricky part, is finding the temp file that's currently being created.
Ah.
Okay. So so let's set up a click, something that displays the matches when you click. Right.
Okay.
So yeah, I click, and we'll start with checking to see if the mouse is even clicked.
Okay.
So do you like having your guard clauses like at the beginning of your function, or do you like to exit early, or?
No. I usually like them one-lined, as long as if they're not multi-line. I do.
Right. So for clicking, we want to look at to see if the that specific solid that you defined on line 11. So if we extract that and put it into a variable, an instance variable if you'd like, or we can put it inside of state if you want.
So can I just assign this?
Have you used the state construct before?
I have. I don't know if I still have any of the thing. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So you can just do that and then or equal it.
Okay.
And call it like height button. Mm-hmm. Yep. And then you just set it right to the coordinate.
This has an output. Do I set it to the args?
You can just you can copy and then shovel it into solids.
Oh, okay. So so the hash.
Yep.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then you can shovel it in. There you go. args.state.height button.
Yep. That.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool.
And so your height click, you were basically saying if args.state.height button dot intersect underscore rect question mark, and then this takes in a rectangle.
Okay.
So your mouse position, we've got a property in there that basically gives you that rectangle for the mouse. So
okay.
we can do something like this. If we go to Amir's world, so try this. Mouse dot intersect rect, and then args.state dot height button. And you only want to do that if args.inputs mouse.click. Right, so if this value is true, then we want to check the intersection.
So is my mouse within the bounds of this button? And I've clicked it.
First has been clicked, and if it's in the bounds of the button, then we can do something. And then Dragon Ruby's got something called notify, and it just does a toast message on the bottom of the screen, so you can actually have it visually, or you can do a puts or whatever.
Nice. But
we have it set to a global.
So the notify is actually on the screen, but the puts will go into the terminal.
Right.
The inline terminal. Okay, cool. So I want to do this if that.
Okay. And I think we're going to have to pass args into height underscore
yep.
click. And you took the right approach of like eventually you just put everything inside of like a game class, so you're not having to pass args all the way around, and that is a very common evolution.
Mm-hmm. All right,
cool.
so
and then we want to just call that function 60 times a second.
Ah, okay.
It's terrifying. It's like, what? We're processing, but this is how
how games work.
Or message pump works. Yep.
Now, is that gonna hot load?
Mm-hmm. Do we do anything inside with the actual click?
No, there's nothing there.
So usually when I have this, I'll do like a return if, and then return if not mouse.click, kind of as the guard clause.
Yeah.
And it's up to you. It's like whatever what your style is.
Well,
and then now that we've processed that, then we can look at the intersection.
Right. Well, I think in the terms of we're running this 60 times a second, any kind of short circuiting you can do is probably wise.
Probably wise. But like for me, Ruby is about the readability, right?
Yeah.
So I try to say there's a limit to how far you want to take that.
Oh, for sure. That's why I've got these things broken out into different classes. I wasn't about to do this in one.
Yep. This is good for prototyping, and then once you figure out, it's like, okay, well, my height button is this thing in state.
Yeah.
And we know it's going to have a text value, and the location of the label will be relative to the location of, the solid. And then you can start formalizing it. But for quickly prototyping, I kind of use, dictionaries and hashes just to try to get a feel for what I want to do.
Yeah, awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so we want it to actually do something now.
Yep. So we can just print to the console to make sure it works.
Ah, that thing. Yep. So.
Yep. Or you can print to the screen with gtk.notify. Exclamation point. Yep. And then give it whatever value you would like. Click. Perfect.
Cool. Oh, and I shut down my DR. Look at that.
There you go.
So if I click now, okay, so if I click outside that, it shouldn't do anything. Clicking in it. Oh, perfect. I love it. God, Amir, it's like you know what you're doing.
Just barely.
Like you've done this before. All right, so now what we actually would want it to do is to change the path of this thing.
Yep. So on line 24, you would put that in state. Currently selected layer.
Okay, you lost me.
So the click is happening. So you can do args.state .selected_layer equals moisture.
Oh. So, and then I would just do,
and then the path would be that value.
I see. Okay. And then I want this to be
exactly.
Oh, which won't do anything now because we have this commented out, but what I could do
could you make the Perlin noise like a little smaller so we get a faster load, and then we can
sure,
we can actually see it in action. Why not?
Setting my sizes there in the think, yeah.
So yeah, 64 by 32 might be a good size.
Yeah, that should be pretty fast enough.
Yeah.
Well,
we gotta uncomment out the.
Oh.
Yeah, is it still comment? Yep, it's still comment.
Yeah. That would be a thing.
Super tiny? Is it just really tiny right now?
No, it's there, but it's not filled with anything. Oh, that's because I've got it set on the moisture. Oh, because initially there is no
you haven't
selected layer.
Anything. Correct.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yep.
Let us do that first.
And you want to set it to or equal, otherwise it will override it every
You're
time.
right.
Yep. And that's one of the weird things is that you have to keep in mind that it's always running at 60 times a second. So that reentrancy, it's disorienting. It really is.
Yeah, that's thrown me for a loop a couple of times. All right, yeah, it seems to be there. There's a thing.
And I think my face is covering the output.
Oh. Yeah, there's a teeny tiny thing there.
Okay. So we could probably change the scale just in the final render at the
oh, you can do that.
On main.rb when you're setting the path. Just multiply the width and height by 10.
Here.
Mm-hmm.
I can I didn't know that was a thing.
Right, because it's rendering render targets are just kind of like a sprite. So it's like You could scale it up if you'd like.
Oh, look at that. Now that's a thing. Oh. I may want to be scaling this anyway, which means it'll take even less time because I don't actually need 640 pixels by 360 pixels. I just need a map to fill the screen.
Oh yeah, then you could go ahead and set the width to 720 and height to 720. Let's just see what it looks like.
Just straight out.
Yep. Because you're always working with the virtual canvas that's 1280 by 720.
Okay.
And let's see what it looks like. And I'm assuming your layout is 16 by 9, or it's not a straight 1-to-1, but we can see what it looks like.
Yeah. Oh. That doesn't seem right.
Still super tiny. What is the size of your render target? Your render target is the full 1280 by. We didn't set a size to your render target.
No.
So it's kept the default 1280 by 720.
Okay.
So for each one of your render targets, you want to set the width and height to be 32 and 64.
Okay. So
the idea of what a render target is kind of you're creating a sprite on the fly is basically what you're doing.
Okay.
Right? So you're saying if you don't provide a size for your render target, it defaults it to 1280 by 720. So what
okay, so I've said make the sprite this big, but only draw on this part of it instead of make the sprite this big and let's make it stretched.
Exactly. Right.
Okay.
And so the render targets have a .w and a .height .h property. So for each one of them, you set the width and height.
So I can just do it like this?
Yep, that's it. And you want to set it to the size of your...
Oh, yeah. The size I'm actually drawing.
Right.
Which ultimately I'll want to parameterize those, but...
Yep.
And then I got to do this for each one of these.
Mm-hmm. And then your solids, the solids that you're putting to the screen are all 1 pixel by 1 pixel in width and height?
Well, no, I did them 2 by 2, but that's...
So you want to double the size?
Kind of. Yeah, I did a tile size of 2. But
yep. So I would set your width and height to be 128 and 60, or 64 and 128.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting it. Why am I doing this the hard way? Much faster.
Cool.
All right, so now
you're actually getting a sprite that's fills just the amount it needs, and then you should be able to make that this with the width and height. There you go.
Yeah.
See that?
I had to restart it because it only generates that on tick 0, so it's not going to hot load the map.
Yep. And so what you can, if you want, at the bottom of the screen, or of the main.rb, you can do $GTK.reset, and it resets it to tick 0. So when you save the file, it will reset your game.
Outside the end or inside?
Yeah, outside the end.
You're
it's going
shitting me.
to eval this value. Yep.
Oh
so
my God.
GTK.reset.
Ah.
And this will set it back to tick 0 every time you save the file.
Well, that was worth the price of admission right there.
Yep. And then when you save it, it should reset it.
All right. Let's see about this. So we're doing the height one. Let me see what happens here.
Yep.
I'll be damned. All right. Now, how do I fix this little problem? I'm assuming there's some kind of Z layering issue I've got going on here.
That's primitives. So you want to put everything in primitives, because borders always, or solids are always at the back. So you want your button at the you want your solid to not respect that it's at the last layer. So if you use primitives, it's first in, first out. It will respect the rendering order that you put it in.
Okay, so rather than solids, I want to put this in a primitives.
Yep.
So primitives
you do that,
is really the best. It should be the default coding unless you have some specific reason not to. Is that a general rule of thumb?
Yeah, so I guess the way that I think of it is I want it to be accessible to beginners. And so thinking about primitives and even like the concept of polymorphism or hashes, you get into this situation where you're like, well, how do I? So if you hit save, you'll actually get an exception.
Yes, right? I did.
Because it says, I don't know if you mean this to be a solid or a border.
Right. Okay. Yep. Because you have to have the I think I did that over here.
You got like a primitive marker. Yep.
Yeah, here. Where I'm telling it, hey, this is a solid.
Exactly.
But okay, so can I do it there, or do I have to do it in a hash?
Yep. You have to do it in the hash. Yep.
Okay.
So your hide button at the end of it, you would do .solid exclamation point. There you go.
All right.
So
now
that's the like facet of press enter or reset the game.
There we go. Aha. All right, and it's not doing anything now because we're already aware we're already on that map. So.
Yep. And so that's your trade-off, right? A little bit, you get a little bit more freedom and flexibility in the rendering order, but now you got to think about polymorphism a little bit more subtly.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think for you, using primitives sounds like a great idea. Like I don't see any problem using primitives for everything.
Yeah, it certainly will make it easier for my little brain to catch up. All right, so now I've got the moisture map as the default. If I click height, it should switch over to the height map.
Hopefully.
It's not doing it. I mean, it should just immediately do that because the map's already genned. Okay. It doesn't have to regenerate it. So something isn't going here, I don't think.
Right, so you've set your args.state.selected layer. So let's go back to the game real quick. And if you press the tilde key, that brings up your heads-up display and put in a $args.state.selected layer and then press enter, and we can see what the value is currently set to.
Nice. So it is set to height viz.
Okay. So what is args.state.world_map_sprite set to? And you can use the up arrow to bring up history. That should work. And there should be some tab completion also.
What are we looking for? The sprite?
Line 41 is where you're constructing the sprite.
Ah, so that thing.
Yep.
Huh. Okay, so it never ran something that would actually change it. Probably because
Load world is only run once.
Yeah, because it's on tick 0.
Yep.
So we actually need to have
that line
this.
And run that every tick. Yep.
Do I have to do this again? Or because that's...
I would actually send it to regular sprites instead of static sprites, because sprites will clear out every frame. It's like a queue.
Okay. Well, okay, so what's the performance impact of that?
Negligible.
Okay.
And this goes back to that trade-off of, yes, static sprites is faster, but for what you're rendering, you really won't have to worry about the speed until you're getting into about 15 to 20,000 sprites.
Okay. That may
And
happen, but
the
look at that. We did a
and
thing.
the premise is have you done any like React development on front end?
Not React. I've done JavaScript
Angulars?
stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So there's this whole facet that they actually took from video games, and the idea of your view is a function of your state. So the idea is that don't worry about what's on the screen. You don't want to try to go through the trouble of toggling things out, removing things, adding things to try to get your visual state. Re-render your view every frame, and it's just based on, it's a function of your state. It's a pure function of your game. And so this idea of sprites clearing out every frame, it basically guarantees you that nothing's going to be on the screen. So whatever you tell me to render is exactly what I'll render. You don't have to worry about artifacts being there the cognitive overhead drops by doing
Right.
that.
Yeah. So it's just here's this slide. Now here's this slide. Now here's this slide. I don't care what was on the slide before it.
Right. Yep.
Gotcha. All right. So let us make a temp button.
Mm-hmm. What do you want this color to be? Let's do that game.
Temperature. So let's make an orangey color.
Orangey color. All right. Orangey color. We'll keep the red at 200. Make the green 100, and make the blue 30. Let's see what that gives us.
Okay. Let's see. This one is going to be.
And we want to shift it over. The temp button. It's at the same position as the height button. So
yes. Let's call this 200.
Yep.
Be right next to it. All right, so I got all that right, but I need a. Click that looks an awful lot like this.
So we're seeing a pattern show up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we can then create some kind of formalized structure for exactly what we're doing here.
Yeah,
I think that's a great evolution. Yep.
Yeah, because there's not a whole lot of difference here, so we can refactor the crap out of that. All right, look, we got. Oh, I forgot to move my label.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. All right, so I'm already temp, so I can switch to height. I can switch to okay,
so
I must have spelled something wrong.
Is it temp or temperature?
Yeah, I think it is.
Temperature. Yep.
There we go. Nice. Pretty good.
You have buttons.
I have buttons. Look at that. Now, what's the complication of doing, let's say I wanted this to be a drop down?
Well, so think about reason through it the same way. Everything's a primitive, right? We break it down to its independent parts. So what's a drop down?
It's just a
label and a border.
A label with a little button that's gonna put out another area.
Right.
With
so when
some
you
more
click
labels.
args.state, you would say args.state, drop down visible, right? And then your render would key off of that value, and then the buttons would be in there.
Gotcha. But we're gonna, so this is something else I'm trying to get used to, because I haven't done front end web dev for a long time. I've been on the back end, so I haven't had to mess with that stuff. But when I was doing it, I was using framework that just had drop down, ta-da, and I didn't have to think about, okay, let's break this down into constituent pieces and construct it.
Yep. And that's been one of those things where we've landed is that Dragon Ruby is going to give you the foundations to create your own opinions.
Mhm.
So the way you decide your button structure may be different than the next person for their own button structure, and the API, and what properties are available, what customizations are there. And there's this general worry is like, oh, you're making me create a button every time. And the tricky part, especially with games, is that you don't want your game to look like every other game, right?
Mhm.
If RimWorld's buttons was the Battleship grade dropdowns, it would make you sad to
Right.
to see those facets to it.
Right.
And then you say, okay, well, we wanted to be able to customize this thing to the nth degree. Now your complexity has just kind of exploded. So we said, let the community decide, let each person decide. We're going to give you the facilities to do this, and take it from there. Now that being
Awesome.
said, we do give you some niceties. So like the layout that we're doing right now,
Mhm.
as far as like hard coding the pixels, we do give you a layout engine for positioning things.
Ah,
Let me show you.
Okay.
Show you what that looks like. If we go to Amir's world, and so the layout engine assumes there's I won't call it a grid, but there's cells that are 23 cells across, or 24 cells horizontally, and 12 cells up and down.
okay.
So if you do args.layout.rect, and then you give it a row 0, column 0, and then width of 2 and height of 1. So width and height are in values of cells, not pixels.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
And this will return you a hash with x, y, width, and height.
Nice.
So then you can merge, right? You can do hash.merge, and add your properties there.
Okay. So that's a nicety for cleans my brain out from having to think about
Exactly.
silly things.
And the beauty of this is that it works cross-platform. We position it in the right place, regardless of resolution, form factor, aspect ratio.
Nice.
You don't have to think about it.
Okay, so I don't have to do this stuff. What I could do is pass in. I don't suppose that the RGB can be converted to like one hex value or something, could it?
No.
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 Okay. I mean, I suppose I could write code that would convert that, but
that creates it.
Yeah.
And the there's actually people in the community that have played around with doing that conversion, and the challenge there is that some people like to use the actual literal hex value in Ruby.
Mhm.
Some people like to have like a string value, because then you can pass in like web colors, and then the same divergence happens there. It's like, well, I want to do it this way, and I want to do it this way.
Right, exactly.
A really simple thing you can do is actually create a function called, button, that takes in those parameters, and then you can, do whatever you want from there. But yeah, let's try using layout first, and then we can do the more polymorphic stuff in formalization.
Right. So what I want to do is args. Well, no, I just want to merge it with this, right?
Yep.
In text. Yeah, direct. So row column with height. Okay. So you said they were 24 tall?
24 across.
Oh, 24 across and 12 tall.
12 tall. Yep.
Okay, so if I want it towards the bottom, I want, say, 10.
23. Yeah, if you went it towards the bottom, 10 would be a little bit higher than half.
Higher than half?
Your row is, you have 12 rows. Well, yeah, just kidding. My math is wrong. Yes, that would be towards the bottom. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So the rows, unlike the grid positioning, the pixel positioning, the rows start at the top left?
Right. Yep.
Okay. So row, and then I want column of I don't know, 3.
Okay. And then
For
what do you
giggles.
want your width and height to be?
And we do width of 100 and height of...
This is cell size.
Oh, so yes, you're right.
Yep.
So probably,
So probably
2
cells.
and 1.
Yep.
Okay, and which means I can take this stuff out.
Right.
And that should be all I got to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, I want to do it to the other button, obviously, but okay. That's
so let's
nifty.
do it to the other button and see where it gets positioned. And the really nice thing about the layout machinery that we have is that we handle the implicit margins and padding. So it won't be like flush up against it. There'll be a nice, comfortable separation between the values in there.
Cool. All right, so this one I want column. I'm doing width 2, so I want column 5.
Yeah.
All right.
And then
that
you can make the XY width and height from that too.
Now, let's say I didn't remove that, forgot to remove it, you know, not on purpose, but
yeah, since you have merge on the right, it would still work.
okay.
Right.
All right, let's see what we got here. Hey, look at that. Got a little spacing in there. We got all right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a layout framework. All right, so I'm used to that from JavaScript stuff.
Yep.
So, all right, so now I got to move my labels. Now, is there a way to make the label positioning relative to another thing's position?
Well, that's where you go into construct. That's where you want to construct like a buttons function that returns 2 primitives, an array of primitives. It returns your button and your labels. So, like here's the structure that you might want to maybe do. So, button, it takes in a x, y. Oh, sorry, a row and a column. The text for the label, and then the function to call, function symbol, right? We usually say M, and maybe you want to give it an ID, and what it would return would be maybe something like this. So your button has a rect, right? And then you would have primitives,
right?
Which would be your solid, right? And your label. You don't need a label property because it's implicit on the text. So there is your, I would say, yeah, your button object would return this construct here.
Okay.
Right.
And then
and then here you would have like M. You could reference it like that. Right. And then your click function, where you have like click height or click temperature, you could look at this button object and you've got the rect property, right? So your intersect rect would be based off of that. And then you actually know what function you're invoking also. So you could have all your buttons in a single collection and then say, find the button that was intersected, return that property, get the method, and do a send.
Oh. Okay. Let me see if I can reconstruct that. I wasn't thinking all in the same property yet. That's not where my head was. You're about two steps ahead of where I was there.
Yeah, so let's create the structure, right? So we know that the structure is going to have those 2 primitives that are returned. But you also need to think about the actual click location, right?
Right. So we're going to have a primitive here of something. Array. So it'll just be an array. Primitives. I'm going to end up with each button's going to have 2 of those.
Right.
A label and a button.
Yep.
And then I've got to have the method I'm going to call. And I've got to have
the actual rectangle, right? Because you're saying that you want to do something relative to something else.
Right. I think. Yeah. Okay, so, and then I've got to pass in a row column. I've got to pass in the method I'm calling.
Mm-hmm.
Where am I missing the thinking here? Oh, my label.
And the texture label.
Yeah.
And color for a button might be something, right? The RGB values for your button.
I could pass that in as a hash.
Yep, if you'd like.
I get antsy when there's too many parameters in a function. That
Totally get it.
that's because then you start thinking, okay, if I've got that many parameters, I probably need to refactor this thing.
Yeah, and usually I do a named function when I, hit this amount.
Yeah. Okay, so
So instead of replacing everything in place, and this is a technique that I use specifically with game development, I'll actually create a args.state.new height button, do all my playing there, and then delete the other stuff.
Oh, like this.
New underscore height underscore button, and then set that property. Make sure that renders exactly how I want, and then get rid of the old code.
So like that. Yeah. Okay. Right.
And you would still invoke the buttons function, but you would you would have args.state.new height button, and then set that value. Yep.
And so
something like this.
So I'm gonna need to call, but I'm not calling this for each button. So basically my row and column is my starting position. Hey, buttons go from there. Right?
So something like that, right? And then you would do args.outputs.primitives. args.state.new primitives.
Now I'm tracking. Okay. Now I'm tracking. Alrighty.
Yeah, you're almost to a point where you're creating a class, but we haven't committed to creating the full-blown class yet.
Right. Stuff out of the way. All right, so this is just one button.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now I'm tracking. I don't need that. All right, so here I would want my row and column.
Mm-hmm. And width and height, you'll want everything to be 2 and 1, right? So maybe you don't have to pass that in.
Yeah, and the text is going to be my label.
Mm-hmm.
And then which order did I do these in? I think I want to put this last.
Okay.
Makes more sense to me. All right, so text and color. I can just grab this. Does Imruby make you splat this to unhash it? Or can I just pass it naked?
Yeah, I think you can pass it. You can pass it without the curlies in it, and it should work.
Okay.
It should work.
Well, no, I mean
you might need the double splat to actually.
That. Do I have to do that?
Not
in Imruby.
Not if you pass in the hash.
Okay.
Yep.
And then my M is going to be my
We haven't created the function yet, so the M function just put a placeholder for now. Yep. Height clicked. Cool.
Perfect. Hey, Feta.
Hello. Hey, how's it going?
No, you're not too late, man.
We're creating buttons, and we've got another hour of streaming to go. So you came in in a good place.
Yeah, man.
It's all good.
All right, so we're making this call, which is good. Now I've got to actually do something in this function.
Right.
So, let's see.
So let's start with computing the layout.rect, right?
Right.
And I usually do that outside as a variable because we're going to have to reference that in the relative position.
No, because we got to merge it in. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that the right syntax?
Yep.
And then we got X.
It'd be row column with height.
So.
Yep. It would be row. You pass in the row, column, pass in the column.
Oh, I am passing those. Yeah.
Yep.
And then my width is always going to be 2, and my height is always going to be 1. Doing cells. All right, so we got that. That's that bit.
Yep. And so in mruby, I think you can't do the implicit. You still have to do rect : rect to set the key value.
Oh, this you mean?
Yeah. Cool. So that is your boundary for click, right? So your solid would look exactly the same, but we would merge in the color.
Right. So I would just need my color and
you do color.merge rect.
Yeah.
You already have it.
Yep.
Perfect.
And my label then is same as this, except I'm going to want to deal with my.
You want to get the center position of your rect. If you want your label like right in the center.
Yep.
And then you would set your vertical and horizontal alignment to centered, and that would center your label.
Can I do it like this?
0, 1, and 2.
Okay. Which one is centered?
1. Yep.
This is going to be text.
Text. Yep.
And
your x value would be rect.x plus rect.w divided by 2. You only want to divide the width by 2.
Oh, right. Yep.
Right, and that gets your center. Yeah. 7 years ago, I couldn't do that off the top of my head. Yep, plus. Perfect.
But this one I want height. Okay. So this will pass back.
Do we have a value?
Well, I'm doing a hash, but I've got no key here. I've just got a value.
Yeah, so primitives : we'll give you the for the on line 45.
Oh, right.
And then this would be an array of values. Right.
Okay. Now.
And you want to mark line 46 as a solid, right? Okay.
Yeah, because the button. Okay, right. Gotcha.
and you've got your vertical alignment enum, which is centered, and you need to do the other property is alignment enum, which is your horizontal alignment. And that'll be fun. So there you go.
Ah, okay. All right. So centering both the.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Just for
Yes.
text. Yep. Vertical, and then alignment enum, and a bit more formatting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why it's not tab formatting.
Well, I can fix that.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, so undefined method args for main. So button needs to pass in args.
Oh, right.
Yep. And then we need to change the execution or the invocation of the method.
Here, there, we're.
So args.
Okay.
Okay.
Seems happy.
That's good. And we just got to render it now.
Somewhere. Yeah. All right.
Are we rendering it yet?
So apparently not. No, I put it in the state, but I'm not actually doing anything with it. There's no outputs.
Right.
Okay.
And it would be new height button dot primitives.
Okay, because that shovels both of those primitives, that whole array into there.
Yep.
And then let's comment this stuff out for now.
Okay.
Whoops. Hey, we have a button. Okay, it didn't do anything, but
Do you see how it's like nice and centered?
yes. I likes it.
Yep.
Now
So
I'm
the
assuming
cool
we
thing
can, I mean, ultimately we could play, not necessarily today, but we could play with fonts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And so your button function just gives you can do whatever you'd like in there.
So we've got this height clicked, and so we just need to make, well, I mean, really what it's going to do is this, right?
Right. So what I would do is create a function called test button click or try button click, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, right. I think I see where you're going
And then
here.
you pass in the button. Right. And then here we want to say, well, we want to return if there's no mouse click.
Here.
Yep. Basically that.
And then
Yep.
this.
And this time you would do button.rect instead of passing in the explicit value.
This one. Right.
Perfect. Yep.
Okay.
And then if it's done, then you want to do send button dot m, right?
Right, because that'll send the, okay. Yep.
And you want to pass in, I guess m probably also needs args. And then try button click would need args also. And there's your button click.
And so,
And you would want to do that for each button on your page.
you mean assign it this method? Oh,
You
yeah.
want to invoke that function for each button that you've created.
Well, I thought the M was invoking. Oh, right. Okay, catching up here.
Yeah, and so and that's the other like weird part is that when it comes to web development, you have a click event, right? You're like, I wired this click event, and it handles. It just calls the event when I click, but when it comes to game development, your event pump is a little trickier because it has to be deterministic.
Right.
So you're thinking about, I've got this simulation loop do I want my events, my click events, to happen at the beginning of the frame or at the end of the frame? Because that changes whether you fire the cannon one frame earlier versus one frame later.
Yeah. That's been a really tricky part for me, trying to transition from the web dev thinking to the game dev thinking is just that difference in this stuff is always happening. In web dev, it's I put this thing here and wait for somebody to tell me something.
Right. And it works in web dev because we're not too concerned with saying this event needs to happen on the same frame as this other attack that occurred.
Right. Okay, so I want to call this for each of the buttons. So this, in theory, well, I've got height clicked. I don't have any height clicked yet.
Function, right.
Although, so if I do this, then I just need this part.
Right.
And that should, yeah, because we're doing this here afterwards, so that should...
And what's the default layer that we selected at the beginning?
The default is the moisture.
Moisture.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I should be able to change it. Uh-oh.
Okay. So let's see.
I broke a thing.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You have a syntax error? I think you have a syntax error somewhere.
Yeah. Clicked it into file.
I saw it right here. Got it. Line 65. There was a missing end.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I took note. I was like, I should probably add that at some point. But there you go.
Yeah.
That's why you got the syntax error.
So, if I were doing this,
you could, yeah,
I'd do it that way.
Yep.
Just
that
because
totally makes sense.
That's prettier to me.
Oh yeah, yeah, especially for single line stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, balls. Wrong number of arguments. Try button click. Okay.
So try button click takes two arguments instead of
What
one. Yep, you gotta pass in
the
args as the second argument.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Oh.
Okay.
I probably forgot to pass args again.
One.
Height clicked.
That would be your dot send function. Oh, you're sending on line 63. You're sending args to the symbol instead of as a second parameter.
Oh.
So it'd be send button dot m comma args.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Oops.
Yeah, this gets into that area of like people like meta programming. I don't know if we like it or not. But
Yeah.
there you go.
I do. It's one of those things where you don't do a lot of that in web dev. So thinking that way, but that's the big reason I wanted to try game dev is because I wanted to challenge the way I've gotten into thinking about Ruby. I want to think a different way. And this definitely does
this
that.
Is different.
Yeah, in Ruby, parents are optional until they're not. They're never optional for me because it breaks my brain when I don't see them. I know a lot of people do like the naked params, but that
Yeah, I'm definitely the other way. I even removed the parens from the method function names, the actual function names. I'll remove the parens there too.
Oh, you're just evil, man.
War crimes. Crimes.
You're evil.
I know.
All right, so that worked. Great. So now I can just
cringe. Yes.
So now I want. All right, so let's not worry about. Let's get rid of the new stuff because that's just gonna
need the new.
bug my OCD.
What I usually do that so I'm if I cut too deep or go too far down the rabbit hole, I know that the existing functionality hasn't been broken.
Right. Well, the thing I should be doing, which I'm not doing, is more atomic commits, because I'm excited about coding and I forget to commit things.
This is gonna blow your mind.
What's that?
So go to the your directory in your Explorer window, the directory that we're working in.
In the Explorer window, okay.
Yeah, just open it up and sorry, I'm speaking Windows Explorer.
Yeah.
Yeah, there should be a TMP directory. So it's a sibling to the Dragon Ruby process. There it is, TMP. Every time you save while Dragon Ruby is running, you take a snapshot of your code and put it into the archive.
Yep, mind blown.
Yep. So archive has by timestamp. So if you're ever in a situation where you're like, I've completely broken this, to know understanding of what it looked like, you've got entire history of every change you've made.
This is the coolest thing I have ever seen.
And this has saved my ass.
I can imagine. Oh my gosh.
I get into that same field, right? It's like, oh, I should have committed this, and you just forget to do it, and then your computer explodes. This has an entire timeline. As long as Dragon Ruby was running while you did it.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. I still should.
You should still commit. Yes.
Have the better habit of committing atomic things, but you know, I'm just excited. What do you do? Let's see.
Yeah,
all right, so
it is crazy, but it's just one of those things where you think about game engines like, why don't game engines do this for you? I mean, it's something that when you need it, you desperately need it, right?
Yeah.
And I've found myself in that situation so many times where I'm like, I've broken everything, or I've corrupted a file and I have no idea how to get back to where I was. Yep.
Yeah, good crazy.
Good crazy, yes. I took that's crazy in a good way. Definitely. Mm-hmm.
Right, so now I want to pull these wonderful colors. That's the height.
I think you named your state variable the same thing for each one.
Did I?
Yeah, you have height button, height underscore button on the line 16 and yep.
Can't spell. Moisture.
Moisture.
It was funny. We had this discussion a couple of sessions ago where I got all bent because I was putting temp instead of temperature, and then I'm like, yeah, no, spell out temperature, because then I don't mean I know if I mean temporary or temperature or
right.
Just 6 months from now I'm gonna be really confused.
Yeah, you see temp and you're like, crap. What did I actually mean there?
Yeah, I went on a rant on one of the shows about quit abbreviating so much. That's.
Oh, I totally get it. That's why it's called vertical alignment enum.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't hurt that bad to type a little more. Me being the king of lazy, saying that is a little of a bit of an oxymoron, but you know, still. Man, I'm having fun hanging out doing this. Yeah, code completion, exactly.
That's why we have code completion. Yep.
All right, which one was this? This is purplish.
Yep, that's your purple.
Well,
for your height. Your temperature was the 200, 100.
Yep.
200, 130.
And then for moisture, we want
color.
some bluish thing.
Try let's do 180 for the B for the blue.
For the blue, okay.
Yep, 180 for the blue, 130 for the green, and 100 for the red. Let's see what that looks like.
Okay.
The blue might be too low. It might be too like blue-green, but we might be able to bump that up.
I like me a good teal.
Okay.
All right, let's see where we're at here. Didn't do something. I missed a piece.
You got to render everything?
What?
Let's see. Are you rendering all the things?
Got
primitives.
Yeah, well, I'm putting them on top of each other.
You're putting them on top of each other, yep.
So, all right, so let's see here. This is the row. So the row is right. What I want to be doing is moving them to the right. It's probably better. Yep, that's instantly better.
Okay, that's a nice light blue.
Whoa. Moisture. Oh yeah. Well, might want to have the
and
click
you don't
events.
have to close it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that just got to be part of my.
Yeah, you get
flow.
used to it, right? Oh, I gotta click it, and then, yep.
Okay, so let's see. We want. See right there, temp click. What does that mean? A temporary thing? Should I get rid of this?
Well, the temp abbreviation is TMP, obviously.
Right. But 6 months from me now, it's just going to read temp going real fast, and I'm going to be like, I give up.
I give up.
New methods discovered. Oh, that's cool. So, and then I just need a moisture clicked.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be moisture viz. This is frickin' brilliant. Okay, so I've got my height map, moisture map, temp map.
Yep.
All right, so this is okay. So I've scaled this one somehow that I didn't scale the other ones, but that's cool. I mean, I'll play with that later.
You like switch some of the two properties or something. So like we actually have a sample app that kind of goes into like the crazy like layout stuff that we did and makes more advanced controls.
Okay.
So one thing is that your heads-up display uses the same concepts that you did here.
Mm-hmm.
So that the Dragon Ruby console, the text box, all the buttons there and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Basically do it the way you just did it.
Wow. So where's this sample? I want to see this.
So there's a sample called it should be under sounds. Is there like an advanced audio? Advanced audio. There it is.
Ah.
And you want to do audio mixer. Yep. And if you run that sample, you can kind of see. And the music is actually pretty cool, but I know we probably can't hear it.
Well, might be able to. I'm pumping all kinds of stuff through the output. All right, so I need to do. All right, so we're doing this with the.
If you go to the run script, you could probably just copy that last line.
Oh,
I think there's a run file in the audio mixer directory.
Okay, so I got to get to that. Oh, right. Okay.
I would just double click the file, and then if you copy that last line and go to the root directory, and then you can just run it. Yeah. cd ... and then we want to go into the actual Dragon Ruby. Yep. We want to go into the Dragon Ruby Linux AMD 64 directory. Wherever.
Which one?
Are you in user home?
No.
There we go. Yeah, and then we want to go to downloads, and then
this.
AMD64. Yep. Yeah.
Hmm.
From there, you should be able to just do the exec. Yep. Oh, you don't need the exec.
Ah. That's
The binary there?
lies.
Is a binary inside of the in there? Oh, one more directory. Obviously.
Ah.
This will totally work this time.
Third time's a charm.
There we go.
All right. Okay, I don't know if you can hear that, but I think stream can hear that.
Yeah. So then you're if you click music, the music button, nice music there. And those boxes you can move it around, and it'll actually you can drag and drop those boxes around, and it'll actually change the
Okay.
balance that it's going through right here.
Really loud though. Oh my god, my head, my ears were exploding.
Your head exploded. But yeah, so you've got your UI there. You saw like there's a delete button and a progress bar and
Yeah.
checkboxes and stuff like that.
Now, is that
This
actually in a
one's more
separate
advanced,
scene? Because I know there's some scene switching sometimes that, like in most games, if you hit the escape button, a different scene comes up with your menu, right?
Mhm.
Is there a scene
that's all in the
concept
same-
in
The scene concept, we have a sample app for it.
that?
There's a sample app for I think it's called like scene management. Go to the change log.
The who what?
We have a change log inside of the Dragon Ruby directory.
Inside of this one?
Yep. So change log. Let's go to the change log previous, because we just recently updated. And in there, look for the word scene. And it's under samples. There we go.
Do input base.
Input basics. Yep. And
Ah.
then there you go.
Okay,
There's
cool.
Your scene management.
So I want to do this run thing here.
Yep. And the code for this is fairly small. I don't think there's too much in there.
Okay, so there's one scene here. We're on our title screen, and then we're actually in the game. Okay. And then a game over. And then we're back. Okay. So all right, so we're just doing a basically a state variable. Checking a state variable every time, and okay, cool.
Yep. And so there's one facet that is important with this concept, is that you've got your current scene,
Mhm.
and your state variable sets the next scene value. So you never want to change a scene in the middle of a tick, because you're processing that scene, and you might have like click events that are occurring, but now you've changed your scene variable, and now you're processing events from another scene.
Oops. All right, so
But this is the general concept. Yep. So you
Yeah,
start
I
at
mean-
a thing, and then if you want to change the scene, you set args.state.next scene.
is here.
And at the very end of tick is where the scene change occurs.
Okay. And then each of these scenes has their own tick.
Exactly. And from here, you can take it as far as you want. Do you want to do a separate class for each scene? Do you want to do, have like a root scene that handles that and what have you? But the high level concept is what you're seeing here.
Nice. Okay, so we've got a pretty nice, I mean, there's more refactoring we could do, certainly, and some prettying up, but this is,
Usable.
yeah. I like.
So, and the other nice thing is that your the functions that you created, like you have what was it, something height button clicked,
Oh, right. Yeah.
or height clicked and you give it args.
Mm-hmm.
Since these functions are just inside this file, you have access to these functions in the REPL too.
Oh.
So if you go to your if you go open up your game, yep, and then bring up the REPL and then just do height underscore clicked, and then give it $args, which is a global reference to your args variable.
Huh.
And then there you go.
Nice. So anything that's in the main function, I have access to.
You have access to all of it. You have access to your world.instance singleton.
Oh, nice. So I can get the, okay, good. I like that. That makes troubleshooting a hell of a lot easier.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, this can obviously be refactored.
Yep.
That's one function
That's
with a
yeah, that's a refactor point, and then the other thing, you might want a buttons collection. So then you're just, looping through those.
right. Well, that's kind of what I had started thinking, but yeah. So instead of doing all this crap,
Right. Just initialize a buttons collection once, and then you can do your loop.
yeah. So I'd want to put this in my setup on tick 0 because I only actually wanted. So yes. Well,
not
the try clicks
has
this.
Yeah, that still has to happen 60 times a second.
Yeah.
This can go into your setup.
And this,
Exactly.
I mean, I can do it. I could just do that
Yeah, you can just set it
now. And I mean, obviously, I'd want to put that into a sub method and stuff. How expensive is it calling methods? Because like all the examples I see are typically like one page, everything in main. Right?
The only reason that's that way is to just keep it simple. So
Okay.
people that are new to the language, there's not a lot of use of classes, not a use of like really complicated syntax until you get into the further sample apps.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only reason.
Okay. So there's not a lot of real issue with, because Ruby is an interpreted language, there's not a lot of issue with crawling through the stacks, method stacks and all that stuff. Okay.
You'll be fine. And if you hit those issues, that's why it's a supported product, right? It's like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm doing this thing and it's too slow, and it's like, all right, well, show me the code and we can make those bug fixes. And we've done that in the past. We're like, oh, this method was too slow, let's optimize it.
Right. Well, and like one of the things when we were building the Perlin noise stuff, one of the optimizations we made was to unmethodize some things and do inline calls because it was such a tight loop happening so many times inside the tick, which is also a tight loop. It was like, okay, we gotta pull a little bit of that out.
And sometimes that's the case, but generally, I say keep that as the last resort.
Yeah.
I never want people to be like, oh, what's the implications for invoking this? Like, do what you feel you should do naturally in Ruby.
Yeah.
And measure, and over
Right.
time.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna make it ugly, just go.
Yeah,
Why are
just
you in
do it.
Ruby? The
Yeah,
whole point of
right.
Ruby is it's pretty.
It's so pretty. That's a pretty language.
All right, so we've got. Wow, this is. Uh-oh, what did I do? What did I do?
Well, you moved it. Your rendering has to happen every frame. Yep.
Obviously, that needs to happen before the button clicks, because nothing to click on if you do it first. All right, so, and obviously there's lots of things that could still be done there, but what I want to try to get to is, well, first of all, let me commit where we are, because we got some
Yes,
beauty
that's
things here. let's not put your world in there. Okay.
Voila.
Now we know where that is. So now what I want to do, and there's a couple of things we got to do. So like I have, oh, I didn't put it there. I may not have even got my sprite sheet yet. But is there a, so what I'm trying to do for, I'm trying to make just a generic standard sprite sheet that is squares of just different colors for now. Just very simple.
So let's, there's a sample app for this. The sample app is under, we have a directory called 99_genre_roguelike.
This one.
And then there's one called roguelike starting point. Yep. So let's look at the sprite sheet inside of here. So there's a sprites. And yeah, if you bring that up.
Okay. So these are all just square sprites.
Yep. And so we've got a sprite lookup.rb file.
Okay, so I'm assuming these are like XY coordinates of the sprites.
Right, of the tile. Which
Yeah.
tile do I want to render?
And the way this would be used, I'm assuming, is that I pass in, okay, I want to render 0, and it says that's at 3,0.
And then it computes the rectangle for that. Right.
Or I want to render R, and that's
Yep.
this. Okay. Ah, right, key. So it's just a key. All right, so
And then, so let's look at how the render actually occurs.
yeah. All right, so I'm getting that. So we've got a lookup table to get which of these cells am I trying to pull out of here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so where's the render? In the main, I'm assuming.
Yeah, let's take a look at main. And let's look for the outputs function, right? Somewhere I'm doing outputs in here. Right, and use this tile in game.
Okay, so what tile am I on? It's getting an X and a Y coordinate
Right.
for which sprite it wants to do.
Yep. So let's go. Yeah, let's look at the tile in game function. Let's see what that does.
What did I hit? So tile key. Oh, so the tile key is what we're
So
what
it's
we're
calling
really
the tile
looking
function.
for, right?
Yep.
Why don't I have my go to? Weird.
That might be in the sprite lookup.
Yeah.
Def tile. So that takes an XY, the tile row and the tile column.
Tile row column or key. Oh, okay. So this is the. Oh,
There's
this
some
is the
constant
width and the
values
height.
for Yep.
Okay, so width and height. RGB, alpha, and then the column or key. So this would be the 0, 1, 2, A, B, C.
Or R, right? Yep. And then tile extended gives you the actual primitive that GTK understands.
Okay, so so is Dragon Ruby actually loading the sheet into memory and then just picking a
Cropping it,
place to
exactly.
render?
Yep.
On that? So it's not like chopping out and making a PNG and rendering that.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And so the properties that you pass in, I think it's at the end of this function. I think it's there's the source X tile X. Yep. So when we say tile underscore X, we're saying, give me this is the actual like starting point of where I want the rectangle to start, and that's in pixels.
Okay.
And our tile width and height is 16, right?
Okay, so if I'm making 32 by 32 tiles images,
Yep.
I'm going to say column by 32, row by 32, or whatever. All right, so this is the actual number of pixels. So my X, Y, and width and height here are, this is like,
The position on the screen.
okay. Oh, this is where I'm rendering to.
Right.
This is off of the sprite sheet that I've passed in here, what I'm, the area that I'm rendering to this area.
Right.
And
then RGB
I'm,
is your saturation, and then A is your alpha.
okay.
So if you want to fade it in or whatever.
And if I don't, are these optional?
They are.
Okay. So if I've got, I just want to render this exactly as it is in the sprite sheet, I don't pass that stuff. But I can tint things or color things or, okay. All right, so I don't have to, okay, good. I don't have to split these apart into individual PNGs.
Right. You can just use the positioning system.
Okay.
And then I've got that hash lookup to give you, so I'm not trying to hard code values, 3, 0, and try to keep that in my head.
Right, this thing, you mean?
Yep.
Yeah. So I could use, like, if I'm doing biomes, I could do like water 1, water 2, water 3 as my keys.
Correct.
And then I could actually, okay, let's say I've got 5 different water ones. I could pick a random one of those for every tile.
Exactly.
I love it. That seems simple enough. I mean,
cheesy.
I won't get the syntax right,
is.
but I'll get the concept right.
Yeah. And it's just those 4 properties.
Now, if I've, all right, so let's say, let's take a look at this again, because I've got some questions about scaling here. This is what was kind of blowing my brain thinking about it. So initially I had my map, I had a tile size of 2 and my map at half the full resolution, right?
Okay.
Then I found out that we can do the scaling thing. So we're going to be changing that. But so let's say I've got my tiles set at a tile size of 4, right? So I've got that many tiles on this screen.
Right.
But my resolution of my sprites is 32 by 32. Is how do I make that work?
It will scale down. So it's going to try to take that 32 by 32 sprite and fit it into 4 by 4 pixels, which I wouldn't recommend.
Right, yeah.
You lose a lot of detail by doing that.
Yeah. But because one of the things that I wanted to explore in this project is modding, right? Letting users change things, and one of the big things they do is they change the sprite sheets, make it look the way they want to look. And like in Minecraft, one of the things they would do is, I think Minecraft by default is like 16 by 16. It's sprites, and they would say, okay, here's the 32-bit sprites, or here's the 64-bit. And so I was wondering, well, how the hell do you do that? Because you've only got 16 by 16.
So there's the pro license which you have of Dragon Ruby actually has texture atlases, and what that will do is there's a name convention. So you would have water.png, and then you have water at 720p.png, water at 1080p.png, water at 4k.png, and as your window scales, it will select the right sprite for that given scale for you.
Okay. So if I
if
don't
someone wants to mod it, they can just put those they can replace those specific files.
Okay. So I actually have, I'm pretty sure I have the standard license here. So if I've got the standard license, how do I'm assuming that's just not something I can do with the standard license. I need the
you would have to you'd have to manually look at the window size and pick one thing versus the other, or what have you.
Okay.
but you should be able to, if your sprite size is 32 by 32 and you're rendering at four pixels by like in a 4x4 area, there's only so much that can be done, right?
Right.
Because you're trying to render 32 pixels in 4.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a bit of a hyperbolic example, but
yeah, it will do a best ever rendering of what you give it. And you can provide inside of the metadata, you can provide scale quality. So do you want it to be pixel perfect? Do you want to do anti-aliasing where it kind of blends if the picture's too small? That's all available in the standard.
Okay.
Standard license.
Yeah, because I mean, not that I'm at the point of worrying about that yet, but I just been curious for so long. How the hell do they do that? Because if I've got 16 by 16 pixels and I give you a 32 by 32 pixel thing, what are you doing with it?
Yeah, you're downscaling, and I actually have a gist that explains this. In fact,
nice.
Let me with examples and everything. I'll send you the link.
Okay.
Gist.github.com. What did I name it? This is always the gotcha, right? Okay, here we go. And I will send that to you in the Zooms. There you go. So this is essentially the problem you're gonna deal with. Okay, so this is a sprite rendered at 8K. Massive size, right?
Yeah.
If you try rendering that at 720p, that's what it'll look like.
Yeah.
So you can hit play and you lose all the line detail, like all the light, swats, because how do you take a 1 pixel line at 8K and present that on something where the concept of a pixel just doesn't exist, right?
Right.
So now this right here, you have to actually create a 720 sprite, and it's actually embedded in there. That's how much smaller 720 is. But now you can see the line structure. If you scroll up, there's actually this 720. There it is right there.
Huh.
So you want to try to match the resolution of your game and the sprite size 1-to-1. Generally, you can scale upwards. So if you're on a 720p resolution and you have 32 by 32 and they go to 1440, you can double the size of the sprite. Right?
Okay.
Scaling down, you lose detail.
Right. So I can squeeze it in there. Like, it's technically possible. It's just not desirable.
It's not desirable because you lose detail. And it's just the nature of the problem.
Sure.
You can scale up.
Yeah.
Scale down is the tricky part.
Well, but if I take a 16 pixel sprite and try to render it in 32 pixels, it'll
double every pixel.
Yeah. So that's gonna look trash too. I mean, unless you're going for that 80s look, but
yeah, and so that's where the scale quality comes in, where you can, the render quality, where you can say, I want it pixel perfect versus blended. If you do a blended render, it will smooth things out, so you don't get the hard pixels.
Okay. So my general rule of thumb for this simple project should be, don't make your sprites bigger than the area you're trying to put them in.
Right. And across the board, we could set your scale quality to be in your configuration to say, if there's something that's rendered way out of proportion, just blend it. Just add some anti-aliasing and make it look nice. And that generally works well enough.
Sure.
Yep.
And that's probably way down the road for me. I see this project taking me years to get anywhere where it's like a
labor
game.
of love, like it's a hobby thing. Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean,
but yeah, this is all just about learning, really, community learning, and me learning. I'm enjoying it, so that's all cool too.
Yep.
So if I wanted to do, whoops, So we're at 720p, right?
Yep.
So if I want to do this, is that actually, well, that won't do anything yet. Where did I go? I actually have to restart that because it's got to regen the maps. Now, is that all right? So it went all the way across, but it, why isn't it as high?
Did you do 32 by? I think one of your size values is 2x the other size value. So if we actually go to your Perlin noise function, so you got 64. You got 64 by 128 for your width and height, and how many pixels, how many like blocks are you generating inside of your Perlin noise?
Well, that would be no in the world. 64 by 32. File size.
But each block is 2.
Right.
Right. So your width and height for your render target should be 64 by 128.
4 by 120. Well.
Okay, so that's your render target, and then when you want to render to your screen, you want to scale that proportionally also.
So all right, so
your
I'm
screen's
rendering
1280 by 720. So then, what would you would multiply your scale by your width would be 1280 and your height would be 640. Right, essentially that you're doing 128 pixels across, 640, and that'll be your scale. So it's not going to be perfect, a perfect 16 by 9 because of your Perlin noise is.
Oh, I see. Well, wait. I mean, the width is good, but
look at your render target height. Did we set those correctly? Go to your render targets. Oh, you've got it flipped. Your width.
I'm actually over bounds on the
Right.
height. Wait a minute. Duh.
It's landscape, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming your Perlin noise function is landscape also.
Well, it's actually just a 2D array, so it's, well, yeah, it is. Width by height, yeah, it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, there. Okay, closer. Good enough.
Right.
I get that
And you
there's some off.
Yep. So this is actually a good example. So do you see like the pixelation?
Yeah.
For the height map. So if you go to your game metadata file. Metadata game _ metadata, and you'll look for the word scale. So scale quality on line 12.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remove the pound sign in front of it, and then set that to 2, which I think is best quality across, taking into consideration DirectX, basically.
Okay.
All right. So now
is that gonna hot load or?
That doesn't hot load.
Okay. I didn't figure it would.
I know. It's like, oh, it's horrible.
No, I just. Oh. That's prettier.
Yeah. See, it blends a little bit differently.
Yeah. So it's feathering the edges, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice. Oh. Well, this opens up massive. This whole scaling thing was blowing my mind because I couldn't figure out. My Perlin noise functions were coming out so compressed and there was so much crap in there. And I'm like, yeah, but I got to have it the right size to fill the screen. But I don't have to have it the right size.
You don't have to have the right size. Exactly.
I can zoom in on it a bit and then just scale it. Okay. Perfect. Oh, you're a freaking wizard.
You're a wizard, Harry. And a lot of the camera concepts in Dragon Ruby work the same way, right? Because when you think about a camera, you've got this huge like landmark, but you're only taking a subset of what's visible and rendering that to the screen. And that's essentially with this one you're doing the opposite. You're taking something low res and scaling it up.
Mm-hmm.
While a camera, you've got something that's 10,000 pixels, but you're zooming into a small area.
So that was something else that I didn't think to ask you about today, but it's something I've been wondering about because as I was thinking through this project, is there like a camera object or something? Like if I want a zoom wheel, right, on this map, bring it in and out, is there like a camera? How do you do that in Dragon Ruby?
So think about the roguelike sample app where you did a tile X and tile Y, and you gave it just a source area for an image. That's your camera.
Oh.
So you're basically, yeah. So, and we've got sample apps that show you different camera styles. We've got a zooming one. We've got a split screen camera shake. We do like different things with show how to do camera shake, and that's all in the sample apps related to camera systems.
Nice.
But yeah, it's just this really simple concept of a camera is effectively a viewport into a sprite. So if you render everything to a render target, and you crop out just a small part of it and scale it up, you've zoomed in.
Nice. So that assumes that works best with these render targets because that's just one image that I'm
exactly
scaling in and out of.
Yeah.
If I tried to do this with individual sprites, that'd be a nightmare.
Then you're trying to manually scale it, and that becomes not fun, especially when you get rotation in there. You're like, I want to scale everything and like rotate. Yeah, that's a lot of math. So render targets are your friend there.
So now one of the things that I didn't want to get into, but since you're here, I'll ask. So right now I'm doing the world map is square, right? So my tiles are square. But in RimWorld, the world map are hexes. Mm-hmm. How much more difficult is it to do hex type spriting than square sprites and those computations?
There is a great blog post by Red Blob Games that covers this. Have you heard of Red Blob Games?
I have not.
He is amazing. He's got some of the most useful stuff you'll ever get. There you go. And he gives you all the math. He gives you live demos, representation of like how you would do that, how would you represent it within your game.
This is good stuff.
And we give you hexagon tiles, so you can use those as placeholders.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm not sure that I want to get into that yet. I think there's plenty of other concepts that I need to get under my belt before I worry about that.
Grid/hexagons, but this is the page. And if you go to his homepage, they're all phenomenal. Like he's got some proc gen stuff in there too, and
nice
pathfinding.
Yeah, the A-star.
So there's this proc gen stuff.
Well, I mean, this pathfinding is something I started reading about, but I'm going to have to get into that a lot because this type of game is all about the pathfinding.
Yep, and we've got sample apps for that too.
Yeah.
So all the pathfinding A-star, Dijkstra's, your greedy and all those algorithms are in there, and we've got a small tower defense game that kind of exercises the use of those pathfinding.
Cool. Man, I'm so excited to keep going on this and getting to sit.
It's really good.
Getting to sit with you and talk about this stuff and go through this stuff and be able to understand, because all the questions, and I get the concepts, but how the hell do you do that? Playing games forever. That's one of the reasons I play a lot of games, and I'm always sitting there thinking, well, how the hell did they do that? I want to know how they do that.
Be careful, because once you learn, you can't turn it off. You cannot turn it off. And so there's a game called Hyperlight Drifter. It's a beautiful game. It's really beautifully made, and it's like a roguelike top-down Metrovania kind of kind of aesthetic to it. And I start playing it, and I love playing the game. And then I walk over a puddle, and it splashes. Okay, and I'm like, and I spend 30 minutes walking over this damn puddle to find flaws in the splash, because it's not a 3D game, it's 2D, so it's all pixel generated, and the splashes, like I put just one foot in, or I'd put in and get out real quick. This is what happens when you start down this path, because you're like, how did they do that, and can I find a flaw in how they did it? And the puddle FX inside of Hyperlight Drifter, fantastic. I can't tell you anything about the boss design because that's what I did for 30 minutes instead of playing the game. But just be careful what you wish for.
So what you're saying is you can't play online games with your friends because they're always pissed off because you're over in the corner looking at some graphic or something.
Yeah, I'm stuck in a tree, and it's like, well, I was testing the collision maps. Like, apparently you can get stuck in this stupid tree all the time.
Like, dude,
like,
shoot that guy, would you? But tree.
But tree, yes.
Oh yeah, that's.
You can't turn it off. You can't turn it off. So.
Yeah, but that's the fun. I mean, after you've played the games for so long, you want to start. The fun is figuring out how the hell they do that stuff. Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
So, oh man, I'm running up on time. All right, I think that may be a good place to break here today. Thank you so much for coming and doing this. I hope we get a chance to do it again. I really love this.
I'm totally fine. I'm totally down with doing it even like monthly if you want to try it. Let's see what we can do.
Absolutely.
Whenever you need help, just ping me. I'm more than happy to go ahead and look at it.
Oh, awesome. Well, and I'm hoping too that this helps the folks at the Ruby community, the Dragon Ruby community, can come and watch this stuff and pick up. Here's us going through real projects. These aren't contrived examples. This is real stuff. Which is that was a thing I had a problem with learning when I was learning new programming things. Is they give you these little contrived examples, and then you get a real problem in real life, and you're going, I don't understand how this relates to any of that. That's
exactly
useless. But yeah, so thank you so much, and thank you, chat, for hanging out and being with us. Hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, please like, subscribe, follow if you're watching this on Twitch. Those things are all free, but they make me feel really loved. So, make sure you do those things. We will be back on Thursday with Rubber Duck Dev Show. We're going to be talking about hobby programming. And then next Tuesday, I'll be back here doing this again. And I'll decide where we're going to go.
Glad you liked it.
Yeah.
Super happy.
So thank you guys for hanging out, and thank you very much for coming in and pairing with me. That was super educational and super fun. So we will see you guys on Thursday, and until then, happy programming.